Yeah. Hello, people. How are you? Yeah. So I grew up in a farming community. Basically, okay, not really. Can I call it farming or is it cultivating? Anyway, so I grew up in an agricultural community where we grew everything that we ate. So from a very early age, I was in the farm. I was in the shamba. Mhm. You know, either planting something using. In fact, one of my biggest triumphs when I was a young boy was to be able to hold the plow, as the cows, as the bulls pull it. So I would either be planting or weeding or harvesting or something like that. And so I got to know the importance of food because I think we bought very little. Because I don't even think that we would buy, things like Kimbo and whatever. I don't think were they there? I don't know. But we had cow ghee. So, I also shaking the gourd, to separate the ghee from the milk, the fermented milk, and all that. So everything we ate, everything was basically grown. So I grew up with that attachment to the soil. So when I first was able to buy anything, I bought a shamba. That time I was working in Undanyi. I was working in Taita Taveta, so I was based in Undanyi. So I bought a small shamba. I come from Emali. I think most of you know because of this Duke of Emali and things like those. So I bought a small shamba near Mtitwande, and I started doing some farming. I would come down over the weekend, put up a structure, blah blah, whatever. Put a few goats, a few goats, and a few chicken, and then I started farming. And that area, there was a lot of guys who used to farm okra, ladies' fingers for export, and biringanya, what are they called, aubergine or something like that. And so I started growing those. And what I would do is I bought a water pump and I would buy fuel and leave the workers, so they can pump over the weekend. So I'd probably buy about 200 liters, about a drum, and leave it at the farm. That would take about 2 weeks. As the farm expanded, and then what I also did is normally this is done on barrows. So I would plant maize on the sides of where we are growing the either the whatever the capsicum. No, there was no capsicum. Sorry, those export products. I would put maize, which was for the local market. So when it's ready, I would come and cut it off and sell it as green in the markets. But one thing I know, farming as a business is very difficult if one, you are not present. Because eventually what happened is these guys started stealing from me. One, they would sell the field that I bought. Two, although I had somebody who used to come and collect, they used to come and collect the feed from the farm, and then they would send me a check from Nairobi. But at the same time, my guys now would sell my produce to my neighbor, who would now give it as theirs. So they would share the money. So I was making very little money, and I tried you know, to sort that out, and it was very difficult. It's only when I was on leave when things worked properly, because then I would grow tomatoes for the local market. I would make a bit of money. But now leave, when you're working leave, is only 30 days in a year. So just imagine that's the only time you're going to be able to control things. So it's basically, what I'm trying to say is, as long as you're doing telephone farming, you'll never make money. Your business will make money, but it will never be for you. And you see, unfortunately, it's because you bear all the costs, but then other people take the profit. So after a while, I decided to forget the whole thing. But by that time, I'd already expanded the farm. I'd bought the surrounding areas. I had about 70 acres. And so, of course, I gave up and said, forget about farming. Mimi ni mtu wa Nairobi. By that time, I'd quit from the civil service, and I was now living in Nairobi. So what am I trying to tell you people? Farming is for those people who are at site. Because then what happened next is I felt that I needed to have a kashamba somewhere. So I went to Matu. My Mali was a bit where I come from, where we are. The ancestral land is already full. So and also I felt that being where I grew up, it shows. I don't know. I just didn't want it, so I went to the side of Matu, bought some nice piece of land on the Faro, and now I was just growing maize, things for me, nothing commercial. But then when I quit employment, I decided, see, upper two, I can do this commercial. It didn't work either, although I would be there a lot of the times. But that lack of supervision, almost 24 hours. A farmer is 24 hours. So the lack of supervision of 24 hours is definitely not a good thing. So I stopped growing French beans and blah, blah, whatever. And I just planted trees, avocado trees, which are now bearing fruit. But I'm having a problem marketing them again because they're not enough to get a load to Nairobi. But I cannot keep on going to go and sell five avocados to the local area. So so it's a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a challenge all the way. The only thing that worked well for me was when I was keeping goats, because I was keeping quite a number of goats and chicken, but they were for my own consumption because I have a worker at the farm. But then I would go get 2, 3, 4 chickens slaughtered, like a goat slaughtered. We come and put them in the freezer, and for the next 1 month we are sorted. Some of the times I'd go there and we'd go, and I think market day, I think is Wednesday at Matu or something like that. We'd go and take some of the goats because we didn't want them to interbreed. We'd go with my guy, we take some of the goats to the market, we sell and maybe buy a fresh male, to change the whatever. So that was working because it was not commercial. But commercial farming is for people who are sitting there. Now, the people who sit there also have a problem with market. Because again, agricultural produce, unless you have a way of preserving it or processing it so that it doesn't get wasted immediately, it doesn't go bad immediately, then you also have a problem. And this is one of the things that if the government was serious about making farming a business, then they should be looking at ways of preserving. I know there are some who have tried and failed. I keep on hearing stories about, anyway, I'll not mention anyone, but there are some who have tried and they have failed. Because one of the things, government is never a good business person. But the problem is business people without certain control also become, they will exploit that. So the farmer is really badly exploited. The issue, like when there's mangoes in Ukambani, they go down to about 2, 3 bob per piece. When you get to Nairobi, it's at 20 bob. I mean, that difference in pricing, it's one of those things. So if you really want to be a farmer, go live there, but farm something that, or in a way that is something you can actually preserve. And I don't know what you can do. You can't preserve avocado, you can't preserve French beans, you can't preserve bananas, unless you dry the bananas or something. But I think this country needs, I don't even know how to call it. Is it a paradigm shift? And agree that we have arable land. Therefore, what we need is to try to help the farmer to be able to make ends, not to make ends meet, to make money. Then that will become an attractive business. That's why our young men will not stay in the farms, because there is nothing. Yeah. So let's think about it. Maybe if you can make a comment on this recording, and just start a conversation on how we can make farming profitable for the people who actually do it. Of course, we want the farmer to profit. We don't want a middleman. We want the farmer to profit, and the merchandiser also to so it's profit, all right, and remove the middle person, remove the excessive government taxes where you have to pay cess. Like if I'm coming from Matu, I'm told I pay cess for Machakos, then I pay cess for Thika, then I pay cess in Nairobi. That becomes completely uncompetitive. And what the middlemen will do is they bribe. So everybody okay, not everybody loses. The selfish ones gain, which is it should not be the way we do business. Okay, let's keep talking.